You realize how much of a bullet we dodged in 2008, actually in 2009. I don't know if Pablo does. Look at old Pablo. Hi, buddy. So I'm listening to Teresa Giudice from Consuelo's Mac Show, and apparently she's had another episode that my man Anthony just sent me to in 9 months ago about the same thing, how 401k plans have failed. And it's stunning to me when you think about the political ramifications that what could have happened under the Obama, not just first term, but the first 2 years. Obama chose to go for healthcare as his signature political event. And that meant that a lot of other things that were certainly well within his grasp that probably would have been easier battles to fight. Essentially, I don't want to say neglected, but were kind of put in the basement until the Obamacare thing went through. And that took look, and the funny thing was about Obamacare, there still is some legitimacy to saying we have a problem that needs to be fixed, for sure. And I don't deny that. I don't deny that at all. I know for a fact, pre-existing conditions, there are people who cannot get coverage because of pre-existing conditions. I know for a fact, I hear all the time that people are stuck in their crappy old jobs because they can't get health care if they leave. I tell you, which is in some way, I'm somewhat jealous of the NHS and the European model and the Canadian model because they don't have to worry about health care keeping them in their crappy old job. If that makes sense. We used to have the golden handcuffs, which you had to stay at your. It's funny how the people are so anti 401ks. The interesting thing is they're really wanting defined benefit pensions. I'm like, that was what the gold handcuff rules were about, was that you had to stay in your company in order to get a retirement package, which meant you couldn't leave. Yeah, you're going to get a good one, but you're handcuffed to that company in order to get the golden handcuff. That's not a good thing. That's not freedom. But anyway, I'm somewhat jealous because the people in the UK, they can say, screw this job. Look, I get the ramifications there. But there are other things. In Europe as a whole, I'm going to get out of this job to go work for something else that I like. Obviously, it's going to be a hard time if you can't find work in Italy and Spain and whatnot. But the UK is thriving for sure. I don't know about Germany, France. I just don't follow that much. I do follow UK, UK, Ireland, that whole corridor. I'm very keen on and interested in for sure because I think UK reflects a lot of the sentiment in the United States. But anyway, so Obama tackled the big one. Now Hillary tried to in 2092. Hillary Care was a dud. What did Bush added Part D in 2003 or 5 or something like that, and that was good. That was a market-based solution to an issue of rising prescription drugs. And I think why do we pay so much in the United States when Canada and Mexico and all these other countries pay nothing? Because we fund the pharmaceuticals, and they take our funding and sell their. I don't know what happened. It's weird to me. I mean, look, you can look at all the study. You can look at all the research. I'm ignorant enough to know that I'm going a little bit above my head here, but what I've recognized, or at least read, is that we fund the pharmaceuticals. We allow them to essentially, with taxpayer dollars, whatnot, and they make their profits here, and then we subsidize them selling their pharmaceuticals overseas, prescription drugs. So we're funding them to develop the product. They develop the product, they send it overseas at cheap, and we still pay full price for it, which seems like we are getting both the short end of the stick there. I don't get that at all. But anyway, so Obama, to his credit, he said, look, we have an issue in healthcare, for sure. And that issue hasn't changed, frankly. It hasn't changed. And I'll never forget Nancy Pelosi saying, I always thought this was prescient, actually, is that imagine if you didn't have to worry about healthcare, you could still do whatever your creative mind was. I always thought that was a great argument. I wish they would have followed through on that, because that would have been, I think they could have made hay. But they didn't. They followed through with this. You have to sign the bill. You have to pass the bill to know what's in it. It was all under the. They didn't want bipartisanship. I think they could have easily got some Republicans on board. But Republicans were. They threw up their. I get it. The whole thing, same kind of thing with Democrats. I mean, they just threw up their They're saying, no, we're not passing this line, and then it's just the whole thing is too bad, because they could have had some bipartisan legislation. But at the end of the day, is more command control that the Republicans want, rightly so. But I think Obama had a chance to really ram something through that would have been beneficial to most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, to deal with pre-existing conditions, deal with people who are 55 and pre-existing conditions who are staying at some crap old job, deal with people that can, they can leave work and not have to go bankrupt to pay freaking $2,000 a month in healthcare premiums. But they couldn't get it done. So they pushed through Obamacare, and we all know what happened there. Anyway, so he spent all his political capital, as George Bush would say, on that. The election of Scott Brown in 2009 to the Senate in Massachusetts showed you that the win was against Obama. 2010, the Republicans stormed back, and the rest is history. But anyway, so that was where they spent their political capitals on healthcare. And listening to Teresa Giardelli and Barbara Roper, all these advocates, consumer advocates, do you recognize how close we were to have losing our 401k plans, or losing your ability to retain ownership of your money? And I was reading this on Teresa Giardelli's website. I was reading her blog where she says, kind of mocking Rush Limbaugh for saying that, they want to take your money away and essentially nationalize your retirement plans. And Teresa was kind of mocking that level of vitriol towards her. But she literally said on Consuelo Mack just the other day that we should pass a law that makes it illegal to have access to your retirement account money before you're of retirement age. And if we were to do that, I would not be here today. I would not have had the wherewithal to start my own business, because Teresa Giardelli and all her liberal counterparts at the EPI and all these think tanks would have said, Josh, we know better than you when you should have access to retirement money. We were that close. I truly, truly believe. Don't forget, the Democrats had I think they had a veto-proof majority once Arlen Specter became a switch from Republicans to Democrats. I think they had 67 Democrats in the Senate. I think they had like 290 Democrats in the House, if not more. I don't think it's 300. But they had huge majorities. And, they could have just, and these weren't majorities of the old blue. I mean, we had Heath Shuler in Tennessee, or North Carolina, kind of centrist Democrat. He was the exception, not the rule. There were a heck of a lot more liberals than there were conservative Democrats. They could have pretty much done anything. And I sit there and I think 10 years ago, this is why I think people overlook the political ramifications of your ability to invest. Because, if you're in England right now, I was just reading, I forgot, somebody, Boris Johnson, and they're like, oh my, this is it. And you think about Paul Krugman. I was reading a Tim Pool talk about some big lib here in the United States who sold all of his stocks once Trump was elected. I don't know his name, but off the top of my head. You think they've missed out on a 10,000 point rise in the Dow. So I don't know the exact percentages. Let's just say 50%. They missed out on a 50% ride up in the market since Trump was elected. And and I get it, because in 2009, this is the situation us on the right were contending with too. While it turns out that Obama was more pragmatist, I would have given him credit for back then, and I think a lot of people on my side don't. Obviously, but he had a group of people who are true believers that wanted to regulate your ability from the top down. Now, a lot of them got their way. It happened. Don't get me wrong. That dear colleague letter for the freaking education department, which made men on the guillotine, essentially, whenever anyone blinked wrong towards a man, the man essentially got expelled from school. Thankfully, what's her name from Betty or Betsy DeVos is starting to rectify that. But they did regulate a lot, that's for sure. But it could have been so much worse. We could have no fracking. I just got done reading from the Marcellus Drilling newsletter, NDN, where they talk about Ohio had the record of production, oil and natural gas. Record by far. It's going through the roof up there. Obama could have forced banning on fracking throughout the country. But again, back then, fracking was relatively minimal to what it is today. I don't think anyone expected the huge boom that we have in fracking, in order to get where we are today as net exporters of oil. I don't think anyone saw that. So they kind of pushed that to the side to go after healthcare. But from a regulatory environment, listening to these people on the left and how they were in charge, man. They had it right there in the palm of their hand to put rules and regulations that other than the after Watergate and after FDR, during FDR's time after Watergate, they haven't had the chance to do in literally a generation, almost 2 generations. And somehow we survived them not being able to have the power to do that. I find that to be I find it to be incredible, actually, how close we were. And again, I hate to say nationalized, but I remember in 2009, they're trying to pass these things on IRAs, trying to pass, Ted Kennedy put a long-term care bill on the health insurance thing on Obamacare. That was dead to rights. It was just nuts. And just the mandates that went with it. And I sit there and I say, man, we dodged a huge bullet in terms of our ability to maintain our own desires and hopes when it comes to our own retirement planning. And I don't think you can take that lightly. I think you got to say to yourself, don't, first of all, don't yell and scream and holler at people who do invest according to their political way they vote, because you can't help but feel for them. I mean, Kirk Eichenwald, that's a guy's name. When Kirk Eichenwald reads Paul Krugman, who he's probably been reading for his whole life, and Krugman says, "Well, we're now is over." Essentially, you can't blame him. When I listened to Glenn Beck, after Obama, you couldn't blame the people on my side. And then I saw some of these rabble rousers in government. I said, "Oh man." But that's a nice thing, beauty about our democracy is how a representative democracy is. How the Senate moves slowly while the House moves fast. And the Senate couldn't get Obamacare done. I mean, literally, Nancy Pelosi said we were going. This is on the House, but she said if we can't pass it, we'll deem it as having been passed. Deem, DEEM, essentially saying this is what we want. We don't even have to vote on it, which was freaking weird. That the media said, okay, that's no big deal. Like, no, it's not another day at the office. This is bad. But anyway, so fast forward 10 years later. Not only do you have your 401ks, not only do you have actually more expanded options, but you have a tripling of what you had back then. And I find that if to sit here today, as these guys are saying, and say the 401k market doesn't work, they're 10 years late. They were saying this in 2009, don't get me wrong, but they couldn't get it done. And I'm sitting here listening to these guys. Today's how bad the 401k market is, how bad the IRA is, how bad self-directed, how DIY investment you can't do. And I say, man, you're fighting 2 battles ago, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am that we survived that, because they could have been in charge. They could have put significant rules and regulations on your ability to control your own retirement, and they didn't get it done. Oh, I'm so grateful for that. Because I'm telling you, man, can you imagine? You got $100,000 in your IRA 401k. It's against the law for you to have access to it until you hit retirement age. What is retirement age? Whatever whatever the government decides. It's just crazy, man. And I think you got another reason why, if the creativity in your mindset is such, you can't push it off, because you don't know if there'll be a chance for you to be creative again. Whatever your creativity is, I don't know. But if you push off too long, you might lose the opportunity to go down that road. Because, again, for me, if I'd have my IRA to draw back on my 401k, I would not be here. And there were people still to this day who want to ban me of my right to take ownership of my own property and spend it how I want, even recognizing I got a 10% penalty. That's scary. Anyway, count your blessings, my friends, because it could have been a whole lot worse. And here we are. 8 years of Obama. It's going to be 8 years of Trump. But even after 3 years of Trump, we're 300% above where we were. And it's sad for those who are anti-Obama or anti-Trump who weren't there for the whole ride. It's sad because they missed an economic boom of which we've never seen. It's I don't know if it'll ever happen again. It's crazy. All right, we'll see you.